since he joined ARS 2013, and since then he has been working in Division of Plant Pathology. And he has actually received some awards like ICR SRF Fellowship for PhD, Best Poster Award, Early Career Research ECR Project Award, and IVS Young Scientist Award. And at present, he is handling about 5 projects, particularly this papaya ring spot virus, and TOSFO viruses, and Begamo viruses. And so far, he has more than 12 publications and 1 review article. So he is very young and dynamic, our colleague. So I request Basavaraj proceed, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pansar. At the outset, I would like to welcome you all for today's lecture on use of genome sequences for detection of multiple plant viruses through multiplex PCR. Before going to the core of the subject, I would like to have some basic, I would like to give some information on plant viruses and their genome. As history suggests, the first plant virus discovered was the TMV during 1892. However, a recent study published in Journal of Virology in 2018 suggests that the may be either circular or linear, and they may be existing in single stranded or double stranded. If the genome existing as single stranded, then its orientation will be either positive sense or negative sense or ambisense. In some of the TOSFO viruses will be having the ambisense genome, and the genome size varies from as low as 4 kb up to 20 kb. And if we discuss about the plant virus genome sequence information which is present nowadays, the genome sequence information started accumulating from the 1980s. The first plant viral genome sequenced was the DNA of cauliflower mosaic virus, followed by the RNA genome of tobacco mosaic virus. Since then, by the date where we are standing, there are huge amount of genome sequence information accumulated in the NCBI database, accounting to up to 9,000 complete genome sequences of the viruses infecting all biological entities, biological organisms on the earth, out of which the genome sequences of plant viruses include about 2,000. After knowing all this information, a question will arise in our mind: why at all we are doing all these activities by generating the sequence information, and what is the significance of this sequence information in our studies? The main significant or important use of sequence is that to accurate and very efficient identification or detection, diagnosis of the pathogens, and for characterization, for taxonomic classification of viruses, and for virus vector host interaction studies, and for framing effective disease management strategies, as viruses are not having any kind of biotic activities like other organisms. They won't consume any food, and they won't be having any food consumption activities or any other activities like other organisms, but they are having only nucleic acids and protein. Then the management would be possible very much through the targeting the genome sequences. So, as per the topic of today's lecture is concerned, we will be discussing only about the accurate detection and diagnosis of plant viruses by using the genome information. And if we start discussing about the diagnosis or detection of plant viruses, first thing comes in our mind is that the symptomatology. The symptomatology that indicates the first information or first indication of virus infection in the plant, although some of the symptoms will be confusing with the nutrient deficiencies and some other abiotic factors. However, some of the typical symptoms just like banana bunchy top symptoms, and even leaf distortion and shoe stringing symptoms in case of papaya, and some of the ring spots on watermelon, they can give some typical indication that some of the viruses belonging to a particular group may be associated with the plant. But there we cannot ascertain which species of virus is really associated with the infected plant. To ease our work, electron microscopy came into existence, and then that started helping to identify the virus associated with the infected plants up to the genus or group level. But here identification of the viruses at species level became very difficult. The only way was going through the ISEM, immunoelectron microscopy. However, immunoelectron microscopy can also be very difficult, or it will be not difficult, but it will take so much time, and there we cannot do multiplexing. So what next we have to do for simultaneous or simultaneous detection of multiple viruses at species level? Again, one more example is that if a virus belonging to a particular group is infecting different hosts and producing the comparable symptoms, then how one can ascertain that which species of a particular group is associated with the particular host? Here, based on electron microscopy, one can ascertain that the virus associated would be of a particular genus, and then because of the higher serological relationship between different species of a same group, it is very difficult to ascertain even by immunoelectron microscopy, and then it was become very difficult to identify whether the particular species, what is the particular species associated with the infected plant, because watermelon has been known to get infected by GBNV and WBNV also, and tomato is known to be infected by GBNV, WBNV and CACV. So it is very difficult at that situation. And in some previous lectures and lectures, you people might have known that there are several diagnostic assays. Of them, the PCR assay is known to have very much advantage by providing the results even at very low concentration of the template, and because of its high specificity. And besides this information, there are some more parameters to decide whether the PCR is really a robust and very efficient or advantageous procedure for the diagnosis or not. For that, here we have some comparative analysis that whether the PCR will take longer or less time, more or less time, whether the skill is associated with this tool is more or less, cost incurred will be more or less, whether the method is really able to identify the viruses at species level or not, and whether we can do the multiplexing in this case or not. For that, the answer is yes, the PCR can qualify all these parameters, and that will provide then an opportunity to go ahead for multiplexing. And again, before going to the multiplexing, let us see what are the variants of PCR based on the number of DNA targets to be detected. And here again we have set some of the parameters, how many number of targets to be detected by PCR. Based on that, a polyvalent PCR, by polyvalent PCR, that is nothing but degenerate PCR or generic PCR, what we can say, wherein we will be using degenerate primers or generic primers, and there we can detect or amplify a genomic DNA or genomic RNA by reverse transcription PCR by using the degenerate primers, but we cannot ascertain at the PCR level itself that whether the product which got amplified is belonging to a particular species or not. For that, we have to go either for nested PCR or sequencing for confirmation. What about the uniplex PCR? In uniplex PCR, it is okay that the primers will be very specific and only one target DNA or only one target sequence is identified, and that will be highly specific. But there, if there is a mixed infection or more than one viruses are associated with a particular host, then it is very difficult to identify. For that, we have to go for multiple experimentations of PCR. Then comes the duplex PCR, where we can identify 2 pathogens at a time, and multiplex more than 2 pathogens or viruses we can target. And again, if we come to the specific identification. Again, here also in polyvalent it is possible, but again these are the drawbacks, and here it is possible, and differential detection possible in case of duplex and multiplex PCR systems, and so many different parameters are there, of which multiplex PCR qualifies almost all the parameters. And if we start discussing about the multiplex polymerase chain reaction, it is nothing but a variant of PCR technique which allows us to amplify the multiple targets simultaneously by using the multiple primer pairs in the same reaction mix. And this offers considerable savings of time, costly input material and labor, because if we are bringing some sample from the field, we should not waste it like anything, because if we use the same sample for repeated experimentation, we will end up with the loss of material, and then for further confirmation and future use we will not be having any sample, and time and cost is the main thing. And this polymerase chain reaction using multiplexing was first described in 1988 by in medical virology, and this is totally rely upon the genomic information of target to be detected. Without the genomic information, we cannot perform or we cannot plan any multiplexing PCR. And the multiplex PCR having various applications, and those includes the multiple pathogen detection simultaneously, and high throughput SNP sequencing, genotyping, mutation analysis, gene detection analysis, template quantitation, linkage analysis, RNA detection, forensic studies and all. However, our interest here is that the multiple pathogen identification using multiplex PCR. There are two different forms of multiplex PCR. One is using the single template and using multiple templates. Single template means a genome of a particular organism consisting different DNA stretches that can be targeted and amplified separately in a single tube using multiple sets of primers. Okay? And here, in case of multiple template multiplex PCR reaction, the genomic sequence of different organisms separately can be targeted using the multiple sets of primers, and that can be amplified to detect the presence or absence of one or many of the viruses. Although multiplex PCR is having so many advantages, it will be having some not we can say disadvantages, but it will some difficulties to handle this one. Okay. As we have already known, this can offer the simultaneous and specific detection of multiple targets, and the process is very time saving, because we will be doing or detecting multiple targets in a single reaction, and this will offer the judicious use of precious starting material and PCR reagents which are very costly, and this will yield more data from each reaction, and because of these reasons the protocol or procedure will be very cost efficient, and this will propose a decreased risk of pipetting errors. Usually pipetting errors will lead a large amount of damage or large amount of ambiguities in our results. So the protocol of multiplex PCR will offer the decreased risk of pipetting errors. And as far as some consequences are concerned, here the complexity in designing multiple primer sets is the difficult task here, and then the competition among primers and inhibition of other primers to react is another problem, and competition for reagents such as DNTPs, MgCl2 and enzymes, all these things, if they are in excess, no problem, or optimum, no problem. If we are using the reagents which are being used in uniplex PCR, there will be very much a huge competition among the templates and targets, and this requires investing some initial time and resources for optimization and validation. So how the primers can be designed or synthesized for multiplex PCR? For that we are having some general considerations. First of all, we should target the genomic sequence or any target of the pathogen which is of very short length, not bigger. Why? Because if the target length is more, it will consume more inputs like PCR inputs, as we said, DNTPs, MgCl2s, all those other ingredients, it will consume more amount, and then polymerase enzyme, and also it may take so much of time, and like that so many problems will be there. And the targets which we are considering must have comparable resolutions. We should have the lengths of PCR products which can be separated easily, which can be visible on the agarose gel electrophoresis. And the sequences that we are selecting for primer designing must be very specific and unique to each target sequence. For that, one can go for primer blast to ensure off targets. Okay, because DNA in the universe is made up of only 4 bases. The combination of ATGC may be existing anywhere in the genome of plant or any other organism. So we have to exclude such sequences. And then the primers here are preferred to be shorter lengths, 15 to 20 bases, but the range is up to 30 bases, in 30 bases in case of other PCR amplifications, but here shorter is preferred, ranging from 15 to 20 bases, and similar annealing temperatures are preferred, existing between 55 to 60 degrees Celsius, or even from 50 to 60 degrees Celsius we can say. And the annealing temperature between one forward and reverse primer or different set of primers must not be more than 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. And then we have to consider that this GC content also should be similar, and we have to avoid the primer dimer or hairpin formation, which are contributed by the GC and AT rich domains. If the GC and AT rich domains are biased to one location or one part of the primer, then that will affect the primer dimerization, and we have to avoid the stretches of more than 4 of same uni or dinucleotide repeats like TTT or GTGT, like that, means some 1 or 2 nucleotide repeats. And we have to avoid the intra-primer homology, means 3 or more than 3 base complementarity should not be there within the primer, and we have to avoid the inter-primer homology so that there should not be primer dimerization. Again, we have to avoid the runs of 3 or more G or C residues at the 3' end, which may lead to the mispriming, because the C or G will be having strong binding tendency, and if they bound to some other places, that will give to mispriming. If we don't want to do all these kind of exercises, and if we want to go very easily, then there are many free online tools for primer designing, such as OligoCalc, Primer 3, GenScript online primer synthesis tool. All these things are there, and here very easy to handle one is the OligoCalc, wherein we can just paste our sequence of selected sequence here. That will give the, once we click here, that will give the information of length of sequence, what is the GC content, what is the temperature and all. And then if we click here, check self complementarity, it will give the information about whether the primers are having any sequences which can lead to the primer dimerization or hairpin formation and all. So we have selected the target, we have designed the primers. What next? Then we have to go for optimization of reaction components for multiplex PCR. Here the first and foremost thing comes is that the primer validation. Primer validation must be done at uniplex level at the beginning to make sure that whether we will be getting the single and specific product or not. And we have to run temperature gradient for that to ensure common temperature of annealing, and we have to run the template concentration as well to determine effective template concentration as well. And next comes the amount of primer. Amount of primer will also play a very crucial role here. Here it is suggested that using the less primer will help. I think many people will be having in their mind that more is better, but it will not be true always, because the primer and template DNA, as we have suggested to go for smaller stretches of DNA targets and smaller primer lengths and less amount of primer and less amount of input template, because these nucleic acids will have the competition among themselves to consume the DNTPs as well as magnesium chloride, which is very much essential for the activity of DNA polymerase. If these things are get consumed by the template and the primers, then it will affect the subsequent reactions. So it is suggested that to use less amount of primers as well, instead of below the range of the standard, and the concentrations of DNTPs and MgCl2s here must be more, and DNA polymerase more, and buffer or salt concentration must be more to provide the basic ingredients to perform the PCR amplification. And some of the adjuvants are being used here to increase the efficiency of amplification, because some of the times what happens, if we are having more than 3 or 4 templates for amplification, then the efficient amplification will not be there. We may get very faint bands in, or sometimes what happens, because of inhibitory actions of primers to each other and templates to each other, denaturation will be affected, and that will be enhanced by adding some adjuvants. However, if don't want to do all these exercises, again there is option. Commercial multiplex PCR master mixes are available in the market for quick results, but we have to have sufficient amount of fund in our hand. Besides all these pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages and problems, there are many success stories even in our own institute and our own center. That is, our senior colleague has developed a multiplex PCR for parallel detection of 4 viruses infecting onion and garlic here. Similarly, Dr. Bikash Mandal and his group developed a multiplex PCR for simultaneous detection of 6 viruses affecting potato. And Dr. Folker, in his PhD studies, he has developed a duplex PCR for identification of groundnut bud necrosis virus and watermelon bud necrosis virus. And in my own study, in our own lab work, here we have developed one multiplex PCR. Besides GBNV, WBNV, we have added capsicum chlorosis virus as well here, because most of the vegetables, including solanaceous and cucurbitaceous, they will be having natural infections of one or the other viruses in the natural conditions. So here we have retrieved the sequence of capsicum chlorosis virus, GBN, groundnut bud necrosis virus and watermelon bud necrosis virus, and we choose to amplify the N gene. As you people may be knowing that the genome of tospoviruses will be in ambisense orientation, hence the NSS gene will be in sense orientation and the N gene will be in antisense orientation. So before designing the primers, we have converted or reverse transcribed, we have generated the reverse complement of the sequence, so that the sequence will be in the right orientation. Then we have designed a common PCR primer to act as reverse primer. We have selected some sequences at this location and designed a common PCR primer, because here we are targeting the species of a same group, and that too all these species are belonging to same serogroup, almost same serogroup, and they are having the very high sequence similarity. In that case, we can have common one either reverse or forward as a common primer. By doing this, we will be eliminating the additional 2 primers which have to be used here. Okay, instead of 3 reverse primer, we have used only 1 which is common to all. And then we have generated the primers for capsicum chlorosis virus accounting of up to 200 bases, and for GBNV groundnut bud necrosis virus around 300 bases, and for WBNV around 550 bases. and these things can be very easily or clearly visualized on the agarose gel electrophoresis. And then we started optimization of RT-PCR detection of individual viruses at the beginning by using the uniplex PCR, because we have to ascertain whether the primers we have designed and the target we have selected are giving a desired products or not. Then we have tested the annealing temperatures first with the gradient from 50 to 56 degrees Celsius, and noted that the 52 was giving amplification of all the three products in a visible manner. And then we have run the template concentration PCR, gradient PCR, then at from 1 nanogram up to 10 nanogram, and these are the cycles. Then we have synthesized the templates individually for further optimization or validation of multiplex PCR, and these synthesized templates subjected to sequencing and confirmed that the amplified targets are of our interest. Okay. And then the experiment was carried forward to the optimization for multiplex RT-PCR. Here again gradient PCR was performed to ascertain the annealing temperatures and template concentrations as well. And then comes whether all these things will be working in the living system or not, because all the experiments means uniplex confirmation and multiplex confirmation we have done using the template we have designed, we have synthesized in the laboratory, but whether these things will be working in the natural conditions or not. For that we have collected about 20 to 35 samples of each host with typical symptoms of toxovirus infection from field, and selected 10 ELISA positive samples from each host type randomly, and this is from tomato, chili, watermelon, periwinkle, you people might be knowing, spider lily, and this is the red trumpet lily. These hosts were showing the typical tospovirus like symptoms, and then when they were subjected to ELISA and confirmed that the virus belonging to a serogroup 4 is existing, because the antibody which we have used for testing was having the cross reactivity with the other species of the same serogroup besides GBNV. And then those samples were subjected for multiplex RT-PCR and found that besides GBNV, the tomato was one of the sample was infected with watermelon bud necrosis virus. In a single reaction we could find that some of the samples are infected by GBNV, and out of them one was with WBNV, which was again confirmed by sequencing, although it was not a first report, it was already reported earlier, so we did not go for publication for this one. And then here in case of watermelon, largely we think that the watermelon is infected by watermelon bud necrosis virus, but two samples could show that there is a infection by GBNV as well, but here nowhere we found any mixed infection. It may be existing in the nature. For that we have to go for again validation with multiple samples, and the results were further bioassayed. Once we get the result here, actually this is the first report. Red trumpet lily was having the infection by GBNV, and spider lily plants, this is capsicum chlorosis virus, and the red spider lily was having the infection by GBNV. So we are further subjected for further clarifications and identified the spider lily as a new host for GBNV by bioassay and sequence analysis. And then we have identified the red trumpet lily as new host of capsicum chlorosis virus, again by bioassay and confirmed by sequencing. With this, I would like to thank the organizers of NAHEP and CAST for providing me an opportunity to stand here and speak on this topic, and also I would like to thank all my teachers and colleagues who made me to capable to speak in front of you guys here on this occasion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vasav. If you have any question, you can ask.
We can have 2 or 3 questions only, okay?
Sir, I have a doubt in primer designing.
Okay.
Like for those which belong to same zero group, you can use one primer, you told, no? So in that case, how will you distinguish between these species? Like you will be getting the same size
Yeah.
amplification.
No, we will not be getting the same amplification of same size here.
Okay.
Actually, the fact is that there will be a competition between the primers.
Yeah.
If we are using more, if more number of primer sets, more will be the competition and more will be the cross reactivity.
Okay.
And they may misprime to other templates as well. So they may consume so much of ingredients like magnesium chloride, magnesium chloride. So here we are eliminating the level of competition by designing common reverse primer or common forward primer, but not the other counterparts. Okay, only one primer if we are having the common, that will help us to synthesize the cDNA, because this is the RNA virus.
Yeah.
Okay, if the virus is having the RNA as genome, then it will be saving our time and cost if we synthesize cDNA using only one primer. Okay, and then subsequently the primers for particular species will be annealing at different lengths.
Okay.
Okay, for capsicum chlorosis virus we had about 200 bases of length, and for GBNV, groundnut bud necrosis virus, we had 300 bases around, and 550 bases for WBNV. Then after amplification we will come to know if we get a desired size of 200 bases, that will indicate the association of CACV. If 300 bases, that will be GBNV, and subsequently the WBNV if it is 550 bases, like that.
So what will be the maximum gene size we can use? Because you told to target for shorter sizes.
Yeah, maximum gene size, it depends on how many targets we want to select. If more, it is inversely proportional.
Okay.
If larger the template size, then number of multiplexing will be less. We cannot do more number of multiplexing. Even we can do 1 kb, 1.5 kb also, no problem. Provided the PCR ingredients what we are using, they must be robust.
All right. So we can isolate from different crops, like we know it individually, they are from different viruses, and we can mix it up together in multiplex.
Yeah.
Like I'm
For
asking.
optimization, we used like that only.
Okay.
For optimization, we used the amplified PCR product at the beginning, and then we have mixed up the infected material. Capsicum chlorosis virus, groundnut bud necrosis virus, and watermelon bud necrosis virus.
Okay.
These tissues from all the 3 different hosts were mixed together and isolated the RNA, and then subjected for multiplexing to confirm whether it will be working in the biological system or not. And then we have done with the combination of extracted RNA and then mixing that,
Okay.
preparation of cDNA, then PCR. In the next step, we have mixed only the cDNA.
All right.
Step by step we have done all these things. Means these things have to be done. Otherwise we cannot optimize it properly.
Okay. So this can be used when they belong to same zero group, right?
No,
For
it's not like that.
single PCR.
It's not like that. Even if the viruses are not belonging to same sero group. For example, if you think of here, we have targeted only 3 viruses.
Yeah.
If IYSV is also there, that is also TOSPO,
Yes.
iris, yellow spot.
LS spot
Okay,
virus.
and some other, even TSWE if you are taking, then again we should find the target which is having the common sequences at a particular location.
Okay.
If a gene which we are selecting, that is having the common sequences, and that common sequences can be used to synthesize one common primer, either forward or reverse. Okay, and it is suggested to use the reverse primer, so that subsequently we can eliminate multiple RT-PCR assays.
Okay.
Okay, cDNA synthesis assays.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such informative lecture, sir. I
I am doing this multiplexing and I am taking help from your lab also. Sir, one simple question, that what about virus titer? For example, in woody plants, the virus titer is always less. What can we do to optimize that thing, that when the virus titer is very low, and how we will optimize that in PCR, multiplexing PCR, sir?
Yeah, it is very much possible in case of even woody plants, because here the thing is that I have already quoted one statement that more is not always better. If you conduct any PCR reactions, you people go back to your labs after your training and check the concentration of the template at different gradients. You see whether higher concentration will give the good result or lower concentration. Okay. In case of woody plants, as you suggested, for that only we need the enrichment. Okay, enrichment means we have to, if you are thinking that very low concentration will be there, then one should add some other tools along with the multiplexing, as immunocapture PCR we can do. Okay, if we are having the antiserum, we can go for immunocapturing for extraction of RNA or virus, and then we can go. In that case, we will get more amount of template.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, students. And thank you, Dr. Basvaraj sir,
Welcome.
for such an informative lecture on multiplex PCR.
For any other queries or problems, I will be very much available here, and my senior colleagues are there. Dr. V.K. Baranwal, Dr. Bikash Mandal, they are experts actually, and we are just nurturing under them. We can get help from anybody.
Yeah, you can
Thank
get their help anytime. They are available all time there. So now I would like to request Dr. R.P. Bansal to give a special memento as a token of love from the NHEP and CAST Society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.